Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be grading every Metropolitan team's offseason. In this podcast, I will grade every Metropolitan team's offseason so far and what they could do to improve. Carolina Hurricanes, A-. The Carolina Hurricanes keep on getting away with legalized highway robberies. First, they were able to improve their defense by acquiring Brent Burns for Steven Lorentz, a prospect and a draft pick. Then Carolina acquired Max Pacioretty and Dylan Coghlan from Vegas for future considerations. Despite losing Vincent Trocheck in free agency, Carolina was able to add 2 all-star caliber players for very little and still have their key core players. With Trocheck gone, they will need someone to step up to fill that second-line center role, whether it's Martin Necas or Jesperi Kotkaniemi. If neither of these 2 players are the answer, Carolina will still have some cap space at the deadline to acquire a center who is on an expiring contract. In my opinion, the Carolina Hurricanes are the best team in the Metropolitan Division because they pretty much have the same team as last year, and they are adding Burns and Pacioretty, which makes them much more dangerous. Columbus Blue Jackets, A-. The Columbus Blue Jackets are the biggest winners this offseason, both at the draft and in free agency. Columbus added some very nice prospects with the addition of David Jiricek, Denton Mateychuk, Luca Della Belize, Jordan Dumont, and Kirill Dolgenkov, all who have the potential to be impact players in the league someday. Columbus landed the biggest name in free agency, Johnny Gaudreau, signing him to a 7-year deal worth $9.5 million per season, and his former Calgary Flames teammate Eric Gudbranson to a 4-year deal worth $4 million per season. After signing Gaudreau, Columbus re-signed Patrick Laine to a 4-year deal worth $8.7 million per season. To get under the cap, Columbus had to trade away Oliver Bjorkstrand to Seattle for 2 draft picks. Bjorkstrand was their second leading point scorer last season and was their leading goal scorer. This move could turn out to be a mistake, we'll have to see. The one thing that Columbus is missing is the number 1 center. But Columbus is very high on both Kent Johnson and Cole Sillinger, who could both compete to be the number 1 center. If they do not have the solution in-house, Columbus could trade for a first-line center after making some major splashes this offseason. Despite making some improvements to the team, Columbus may not be good enough to make the playoffs in a very tough Metropolitan Division. And now, a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at HockeyWiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on anchor.fm/HockeyWiz777scouting. New Jersey Devils, A. The New Jersey Devils had a tremendous offseason, starting at the draft and continuing through free agency. New Jersey was one of the winners at the draft, as they vastly improved their prospect pool, stocking up on defense, adding the likes of Simon Nemec, Seamus Casey, and Daniil Orlov. Besides improving the prospect pool, they also traded for Vitek Vanecek at the draft, who they promptly re-signed to a 3-year deal worth $3.4 million per season. In free agency, the Devils were a very busy team. After missing out on Johnny Gaudreau, who signed with Columbus, the Devils signed Andre Palat to a 5-year deal worth $6 million per season. Palat will bring veteran leadership and playoff experience to a team that greatly needs it. New Jersey also signed veteran defenseman Brendan Smith to a 2-year deal. He will bring an element of physicality to the blue line, which the Devils hadn't had in a long time. To give some help to their average goaltending, the Devils traded for John Marino, who makes the Devils' defense much better for the immediate future. And it will also open up the possibility for a Damon Severson trade down the road. After a lengthy negotiation, Jesper Bratt and the Devils agreed on a 1-year deal worth $5.4 million. This is a prove-it deal for Bratt, and it gives the Devils another year to closely evaluate if they value him as one of their core pieces. New Jersey looks much better on paper than at the start of the offseason, but they could definitely use another top 6 swinger if Alexander Holtz is not NHL ready yet. The New Jersey Devils will be a serious threat in 2 years, but for now, they are more likely to miss the playoffs again, especially because their division is just too good. New York Islanders, C-. It's not that the New York Islanders haven't tried to improve their team. It's that they just aren't desperate enough to overpay free agents on an inflated market. The one move the Islanders have made this offseason was trading their first-round pick in this year's draft to Chicago in a 3-team trade for Alexander Romanov, which sent Kirby Dach to Montreal. Romanov instantly makes their top 4 much better and will be excellent being paired alongside Noah Dobson. Both Dobson and Romanov need to be re-signed, but if the Islanders are to lock up both long-term, they won't have enough cap space. The Islanders should try to move a veteran winger, either Josh Bailey or Kyle Palmieri, so that they can give Oliver Wahlstrom more playing time, and so that they can create some cap space to re-sign their RFAs. This is a typical Lou Lamoriello offseason. Islanders fans should be glad that Lou lost out on some free agents this year, rather than overpaying for them. Going off what the Islanders have done this offseason, I can't give them any higher than a C-, especially when other teams in their division are vastly improved. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. New York Rangers, B+. The New York Rangers lost a few key players this offseason. Forwards Ryan Strome, Andrew Kopp, and Frank Vetrano, who left in free agency, and goaltender Alexander Georgiev, who was traded to Colorado. To replace these players, the Rangers signed center Vincent Trocheck to a 7-year deal worth $5.6 million per season, and signed veteran goalie Yaroslav Halak to back up Igor Shesterkin. Kaapo Kakko was an RFA and was re-signed to a 2-year deal worth $2.1 million per season. This is an excellent bridge deal for the Rangers, as Kakko is expected to play a bigger role next season. Vitaly Kravtsov, who the Rangers chose first overall in 2018, could also become a major part of the offense, especially if he clicks on the line with Artemi Panarin. Chris Drury deserves some props for not overpaying players in free agency, because they still need to pay RFAs next season like Philip Hedl, Alexis Lafreniere, and Keandre Miller. If Vitaly Kravtsov and Kaapo Kakko don't work out in a top 6 role, I can see the Rangers going all out and trading for a top 6 right winger at the deadline. The Rangers did what they needed to improve their team, and should be one of the favorites to win the Metropolitan Division. Philadelphia Flyers, D. The Philadelphia Flyers have had a bad offseason so far. Not only are they stuck overpaying for veteran players such as Kevin Hayes, JVR, and Rasmus Ristolainen, but they overpaid for Tony DeAngelo, who was a byproduct of playing with Jacob Slavin, and they gave Nick Delorier a 4-year deal worth $1.75 million per season. The Flyers also bought out Oscar Lindblom, who was immediately signed by San Jose. With all the teams in their division seemingly getting better, and Philly doing nothing but making mistake after mistake, it's impossible for me not to give them a bad grade for the offseason. Philly needs to move their veteran wingers so their younger players can get playing time, and so they can get something for those players. It would not be surprising if the Flyers finish dead last in the division next season. Listen to Hockey Wiz podcasts on Podbean and Spotify. Check out my YouTube channel, Lucas Augang. Pittsburgh Penguins, B. The Pittsburgh Penguins headed into this offseason not knowing if it was the end of an era, and if either Evgeny Malkin or Chris Letang would return to the team. However, both were ultimately brought back, Malkin for 4 more years and Letang for 6 more. Along with re-signing both Malkin and Letang, the Penguins also brought back Rickard Rakell, who was acquired at the trade deadline, to a long-term deal. Kasperi Kapanen also had to be re-signed. He was re-upped for 2 more years. Pittsburgh's blue line saw a few changes this offseason, as they traded away John Marino to the Devils for Ty Smith and a draft pick, then acquired Jeff Petrie from Montreal for Michael Matheson and a draft pick. Pittsburgh also signed Jan Ruda away from Tampa in free agency. Along with Ruda, Pittsburgh also signed Josh Archibald, who is a solid 4th-line player. Pittsburgh should be done making moves this offseason, as they don't have any cap space left to add players. Although the Penguins were able to retain their core and made moves to remain a contender for the next 2 years, it will come at the cost of overpaying veterans on long-term deals past their prime. Overall, I think Pittsburgh had a solid offseason and will be a good team in the short term, but their future does not look so great. Washington Capitals, B. The Washington Capitals did a bit of house cleaning at the goaltending position by first trading away Vitek Vanacek to the New Jersey Devils and then letting Ilya Samsonov walk in free agency. With an obvious need for a starting goalie, the Capitals signed the best free agent goalie available in Darcy Kemper, who backstopped the Colorado Avalanche to the Stanley Cup this summer. The defense took a bit of a hit with the loss of Justin Schultz, but they did sign Eric Gustafsson to a 1-year deal, and he should be a solid short-term solution. The Capitals are preparing to play the season without Nicklas Backstrom, who underwent hip surgery, and his timeline for a return next season remains foggy, so they went out and signed Dylan Strome to a 1-year deal and traded for Connor Brown. These moves will allow the Capitals to continue rolling 4 lines, and they should still be a contender in the Metropolitan Division. I think Washington can still use a veteran defenseman in their top 4. Look for them to maybe add one at the trade deadline. Overall, I think the Washington Capitals did a good job this offseason and made the moves necessary to remain a contender if they have to play without Nicklas Backstrom. In my next podcast, I'll be grading every Central Division team's offseason.